love talking about some of the listings we have in terms of the problems that we encounter and how we solve them. You know, anybody can talk to you about, I've sold this house or got this listed, but if we can't learn something from our listings that will help another seller, help the public, help another realtor, then we're kind of missing an opportunity. And I want to share some of these opportunities today. The first house I want to talk about is a house we have. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Wilton Manors, and it was a single owner house. So the owner purchased it in 1954 for about $5,000. And we put that house on the market for a little over $500,000. The house has some problems. It has an original roof. It has cast iron pipes. It has some electric that needs to be redone. And it also has some pipes that are running through the attic. Each of these presented challenges to us, but we were able to overcome them. We had a very astute buyer, a gentleman in Miami. I've done business with him before, and he dots every I and crosses every T. And we made sure that we fully disclosed any issue that the house had, and we addressed those problems so that a fair price was obtained for the seller and also for the buyer. You know, when it comes to selling real estate in a market that's balanced, I believe that it's important for there to be a little bit of pain from the seller and a little bit of pain from the buyer. And this is one of those perfect situations where problems were identified, whether it be the roof, the galvanized pipes, the electric. Oh, and by the way, it also didn't have central air. And we were able to overcome those hurdles and still settle at a price that was very acceptable to the seller. We talk to our customers. We don't text, we talk. And we document everything we talk about so that there's no misunderstanding on what the terms have become from the initial offer. In the past 6 months, houses have kind of flown off the market. People waive their inspection contingency, they waive the appraisal rights, and all of a sudden more inventory hit the market. And I have a situation now when the inventory has gotten higher and we have a property in Lighthouse Point. And, you know, it's funny, sellers want the best of everything. You know, they want the highest price, the quickest close time with the least amount of work or maintenance in their home. So in this particular case, we were able to get full price offer, the house appraised, but the house needed to be inspected. We advised our sellers to disclose everything, any known defect, because as a litigious state, we don't want our sellers sued and we don't want our buyers disappointed. So we knew going in that the roof may be an issue, and we knew before the inspection that there had been a drain clog in the kitchen. We noticed that that was missing from the seller's disclosure, and when the report came back, the seller was pretty irritated that the buyer wanted a credit of $100,000, $70,000 for the roof, and $30,000 for the galvanized pipes. Sellers oftentimes want the best price, the shortest amount of time, without doing any kind of maintenance on the house. I'm here to tell you that market has changed. People need to maintain and take care of any kind of deferred maintenance so they can get the best price. We still have plenty of buyers down here. Coldwell Banker has a program called Revitalize, and using other people's money is the best way to get repairs done. They could have used our program to take care of the pipes. We don't handle roofs, but just about anything else, including staging, to help get a seller the most amount of money. When you sell your house, fully disclose, make it look the best it can look, do those small projects you've been putting off, make sure the house glistens so you can justify your price. Can you imagine you've got a real estate contract, you've got a buyer and a seller involved, the buyer's all excited, and all of a sudden the seller doesn't show up for the closing? What's that all about? I'm sad to say that's happening more and more in our market. Again, we talk about this being a tricky market, and we talk about the need to use realtors who know how to keep a contract together. But what happens when the seller doesn't show up and you can't execute and transfer the deed? Well, we have a situation right now where the seller did not show up for the closing. The seller thought that by not showing up that he would default the contract and he could get more money for his $1.24 million sale. and to get $1.5 million in that property. Fortunately, we have the buyer. Fortunately, we use George Moraitis as our attorney for closing. And because we use George, everything is done elegantly and impeccably. So that means all the money was in place, all the cash for the 1.24 million transaction was done, everything was ready, and everything was prepared, and we just simply needed a signature. Again, the seller wanted more money, and the buyer decided to sue. George referred us to Richard Zayden, who's a litigator in town, and I got to tell you, he's fantastic. And we initiated a lawsuit on behalf of the buyer. The buyer did this. And now there's an action in place and a countersuit coming back from the seller to the buyer with crazy nonsense things. Again, we know his motivation is to get 1.5 million. We know we have more inventory in the market. We know that prices are stabilizing, if not going down. And when you talk to the attorney, we know that the buyer will prevail. Now, if the buyer prevails, which we think he will, that seller not only is not going to get more money for the property, he is going to be responsible because of the real estate contract for the legal expenses incurred. So that's my buyer's expenses as well as his own expenses. That could be a hefty bill. Make sure you understand the contract. Make sure you have a team of experts surrounding your contract, so that any contract that you do is managed appropriately by the attorneys, and you're following the contract letter so that if you need to sue for specific performance, all your ducks are in order and everything's done elegantly and correctly. I've heard the same thing from other realtors now. You know, I talked to a realtor recently. She said, I've been crying for the last 3 days. The seller didn't show up. I heard it from another person. Seller didn't show up. They want more money. In those situations also, the buyer did prevail. You work off a contract and you work off an agreement where you have specific performance requirements. It's hard to get around that. So you could give them 1.24 million, I guess, but it's probably easier to give them the house. If you have sticky contract requirements or you need help or referrals to attorneys who can handle this process when the seller doesn't show up, give me a call. My name is Gary Lanham. I'm with Coldwell Banker, and my cell is 954-695-6518. Thank you.